Hi, this is Joyce, back for episode 17, and I have a guest with me today who will be speaking about Israeli affairs, affairs in America, and what we think about inclusivity and how we are connected with the world. And to all my Periscope followers, hey, if you'd come over here to YouTube, I'd really appreciate it, and subscribe. I've gotten a couple of more followers, that's super, but this is an absolute direct appeal. Also, if you'd like me to answer any questions that you may have, please contact me at thevoiceofjoyce@earthlink.net. And without further ado, let me introduce my guest, Maxine Dovere, and perhaps she'll tell us what she's currently working on, because it's been very exciting to know her.
Well, thank you, Joyce. And all of us have lots of projects going on, and I am happy to be involved with some in Israel and some here in the States. You spoke about Israel, and in Israel I am doing a lot of work with the Druze community. The Druze are a separate ethnic group, about 160,000 people in Israel, devout Zionists, superb members of Israeli society, contributors to the army and security, and very important in the fabric of Israel and in the community of Israel. And what I'm working on is a project called the Or Foundation. The Or Foundation was established as a legacy to Brigadier General Munir Amar. Brigadier General Amar was the commander of Kogat. Kogat is the civilian authority in the territories, which is responsible for everything from security to making the water run and getting the lights on, keeping the peace, keeping the quiet as the goal. The general was the highest-ranking Druze officer at the time of his death. He died tragically about 4 years ago in a training accident in a private plane, and it was a great loss to Israeli society, to the Druze community, and to his very honorable family.
Are you helping any other minorities in Israel, or do you have, I know you were the voice
We are very focused on developing the Or Foundation and making the position of the young Druze veterans more viable, more able to fully participate in Israeli society. The Druze are renowned for their contribution to the security. They are heroic fighters, and the community is fully aware of the need for education. And last year we awarded 30 scholarships, partial scholarships, because our funding is just beginning. There are some very dedicated and helpful friends here in the States. And of course, the Amar family is making very active contributions in Israel. And a couple of Israeli corporations understand the importance of supporting these young people. And we are looking forward to developing the legacy and the ability to convey that legacy by raising funds, by developing a position so that more students can benefit from scholarship funds during the course of their academic studies.
Well, that's super. And perhaps now, maybe you would say what in your career you found you were most passionate about. What drew you to journalism, to radio, to the press, and you seem to be still continuing?
Well, of course I am. I was on radio when I was 17 years old, so that came on a very standard foundation of high school junior high school journalism, and being the editor of the paper, and whatever goes with being involved in high school journalism. I was a student at Douglas College, which is Rutgers University, and Rutgers has a fine station called WRSU, and it was my focus as an extracurricular during my college years. So when I came to New York, I worked in the sort of baby radio jobs that people do to begin, and ended up as associate producer of the Barry Gray Show. If anyone is old enough to remember, I was very young. He was very old, but it was a very it was a baptism under fire, is what it was.
It's interesting. I read about Barry Gray because I was very young also, and my only thought of radio, and I don't know if anyone will ever remember it, was The Shadow.
The shadow knows.
The Shadow knows.
You know, I'm a person without a television, but NPR plays all the time.
Yeah.
And the ability of radio to be part of life is extraordinary. Whether it's someone listening in the middle of the night or a fellow driving down the road on a highway, radio is there. The farmer can listen on his tractor. Radio is there. I am a proponent of radio.
Yeah, and they do use it. There's no question. Radio is news for a lot of people, especially Sirius Radio.
Michael Bloomberg started his media business in two areas. One, the Bloomberg terminal, obviously, and the second was the purchase of a radio station for something like $15 million, which is, a drop in the hat, according to what things are now. But he started with Bloomberg Radio. And I used to do commercials for clients on Bloomberg Radio.
Interesting.
And Michael Bloomberg was there in his office on the floor, the same style with which he governed the city of New York, in the middle of it, on top of it. Excellent way of keeping knowledge and a hand on what goes on in one's company. And, he would cross the floor, say hello, greet one another. It was quite the experience.
Is the Bloomberg News Today an offshoot of that Bloomberg Radio? Because I know
it's not an offshoot. It's the development. The enhancement to go to both voice and visual. Excellent stuff. And obviously his concentration is on business and that which affects business. And it's a fabulous niche.
Yeah, I've seen it. Now let's segue briefly into what you just did last, which is Shared Legacies, which is a video documentary.
It's a documentary. It's not a video. It's a filmed documentary that was spearheaded by Dr. Shari Rogers, and it's a compilation of interviews and thoughts about the Jewish involvement with the civil rights movement, and features amazing interviews with the actual leaders, those who were there, everyone from John Lewis to the lawyer of Martin Luther King, who was the main narrator of the film, to interviews with Andrew Goodman's brother, and interviews with a flurry of black leaders and Jewish leaders, people who made aspects of the civil rights movement possible. David Rose, the real estate family here in New York, made a contribution to Martin Luther King that enabled him to get the audio equipment that he needed for the March on Washington.
I had no idea.
Yeah. The I Have a Dream speech could not be heard without audio equipment. And that came from contributions in the Jewish community. It's a well-known fact that the NAACP had a lot of Jewish leadership in its early history. And the importance of the film is to make known that history, but more important, to understand the value of that history going forward, going to the future. so that the young people who, as you say, and you're a sophisticated New Yorker, you didn't know. A lot of people don't know. The day after the film, I was in someplace there in Atlanta, and just a couple who had seen the film, black couple, obvious, educated, elegant, professional couple, and they didn't know. They didn't know the Jewish involvement.
Well, I knew the Jewish involvement in terms of the kids. I had no idea.
You're talking about the 3 who were killed.
Yeah, but I had
that
no idea.
was not the Jewish involvement only. The fact that 2 of those murdered in Mississippi were Jewish. They weren't religious Jews. They were Jewish. They had Tikun Olam, the repair of the world, as part of their heritage. And the Cheney, the black fellow who was with them, who all 3 were doing an inspection of a site for voting rights, for voting, when they were captured and murdered. But there was a deeper and more historic involvement of the
I guess
Jewish
what
community.
I did not know was the philanthropic component of the freedom fighters.
And it's not only the philanthropic component. The most famous picture of that era is Martin Luther King walking with Rabbi Heschel, with Rabbi Prince. Prince was a Holocaust refugee. He wasn't a survivor. He had gotten to America earlier in time and understood what oppression can do, and understood what nationalistic bigotry can do. We have the Holocaust, and the shared legacy is the understanding of the destruction of society by a nationalistic movement, the Nazi movement, or by any habitual movement, which was the Jim Crow and the obviously slavery, but the post-slavery. It didn't get a lot better for many people until the 60s. You had the Tuscaloosa Airmen, who in the 40s were superb American patriots, fighters, airmen, and they came home and they couldn't use the same bathroom as people who, let us say, had skipped the draft or were certainly qualified only by the color of their skin to be better or different, and that had to stop.
It hasn't gone at this point.
It hasn't gone away
far enough.
During the filming, we were in Selma on the 50th anniversary of the march, and it was a very interesting experience to be in Selma, to be a little white girl in Selma, sitting as a journalist, sitting on the risers, standing on the risers, watching the audience directly in front of the stage on which George Bush and Barack Obama and John Lewis and others all spoke. And in front of that area were the Congress people and religious representatives and a ticketed crowd. And that crowd looked, sort of like a New York crowd, very mixed. It was black and white, people standing together. And then there was another area just to the side of that focus body that the cameras could see. And that area was also seated and also ticketed, but there was hardly a white face there. That was where Jesse Jackson was sitting, where other leaders of the civil rights movement were seated. And it was a negative feeling for me because it was not mixed. It was not representative
It wasn't
of who we should
integrated.
be as a country.
Well, this is a continuing problem that we'll have to address. And I think what we'll do is, I know we'll do it. Episode 18, that is coming up the week after, I returned from APAC with Maxine. APAC is the American Israeli Political Action Committee. We are meeting with many people from Congress and from Israel to understand current problems that they're experiencing, which is not so different from what we have right here. So I hope to be able to bring to you whatever I learn at the APAC meeting, and also discuss why we really can't tolerate another 4 more years. We've got race to tackle, we've got inequality to tackle, we've got climate change to tackle, and pollution, health care. So much is going on in our society that we cannot afford to have any divisions among us. And there shouldn't be. On a one-to-one level, it seems to me we all get along. So I do think, as I've said before, our future is bright. If we look at each other and we see each other and we acknowledge each other and ourselves, then we are actually living out what is Torah, the living Torah, which is do unto others as you would do unto yourself. Thank you for listening, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Obviously, the views that you hear of any of my guests, they're their views. And you're welcome to write in to the Voice of Joyce at earthlink.net and comment or ask questions. Anything that you wish, I am happy to address on my next program, and also to cite you on my next program if you wish, to say that I am answering your questions. So thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you in another week. I guess I may see you actually before I go to APAC. So we'll discuss the issues of the day. And when I come back from APAC, I will certainly impart to you what I've learned. Also, for anyone who's interested, I will be getting an update on New York State's climate policy. I will be at Technion, and I am going to a lecture at Columbia University next Tuesday, talking about reaching common ground. So God bless you all. Thank you very much for joining, and have a great day. Bye now.